Well, hello and welcome, Power Partners, to our informational playground. This is Starstyle, Be the Star You Are. We are coming to you under the auspices of Be the Star You Are charity and on the Voice America Media Empowerment Channel. I am your host, Cynthia Bryan. The miracle moment for today brought to you by Be the Star You Are charity. You can visit the charity at bethestaryouare.org. This is one from C.S. Lewis. Aim at heaven and you'll get earth thrown in. Aim at earth and you get neither. It's sort of like a miracle moment that I always say is like I've always taught everybody to reach for the stars because if you shoot for the moon, you probably will just hit the dirt. So, go as far as you can. Think big. So today's show, we are going to be talking about emergency care in segment two. And in segment one, it's about disaster sanitation because I don't know if there could be anything worse than a sanitation system failure when intestinal microbes like E. coli could leak into the environment. But this happens with national disasters and wars, and there are sewage backups. So, we're going to give some ideas to protect yourself and your family from the effects of human waste gone wild. And then segment two, when we're talking about emergency care, well, if you get sick or injured, is it better to visit an urgent care center or is it better to go to the emergency room? So, urgent care centers are a better bet if you have a minor health problem, while emergency rooms have bigger facilities, more staff, and they can deal with the major problems. Of course, there's a real difference in prices. And so we're going to discuss that. Where is the best way to go when you need help? And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about the sanitation today was because I can hardly, if you're like me, you might feel the same. My heart is just so broken over all these people who are suffering in Gaza and having to move. They're in this tent, that tent. And when you look at photos, you just wonder, what about sanitation? The people always look so clean. Their clothes even look clean. But where are they getting their water? Where are they going to the bathroom? What are they doing when they're getting sick? And it made me, I don't know, I just was thinking about how dangerous it is with when you're in a war zone of all the different diseases that you could get just from the lack of sanitation. I know I think it was about a month ago, in my own home, when we went to flush the toilets, it started backing up. Now it didn't overflow. I had a plunger, but I had to call a company to come and to go through the sewer. It turned out that there were roots that had gotten in and had blocked. And unfortunately, when that happens, I have an overflow gadget or something that's on it. So when it started to back up, the overflow went out. So it actually went into the garden. And ew, it is just so gross. It is just, and there's not a good way to talk about it. But this makes you think about what can happen in a major disaster. Now, last week we had a pretty big earthquake here. It was 4.5, 4.6. So it's not as big as, when we had the 6.5 and the 7, but boy, it still shook. And nothing was damaged in my home, and even nothing fell off the walls. But if a big earthquake strikes, or when you have a hurricane, or when you have a flood, or tornado, all of those things, the last thing you really want to think about is the toilet, right? You want to think, am I still going to be able to flush the toilet? And am I still going to be able to have water? If things become non-operational when the sewage system is disrupted. Now, if you have a community emergency response team in your area, it's called CERT. Many of them are doing classes or seminars or workshops to help people get prepared for all kinds of disasters. And many of them also have sanitation kits so that if your sewage system fails or there is a national disaster, you will have something. But we'll talk about what you can do just on your own. But if you do have that CERT in your area, you might want to go and look online for where the nearest one is and find out what facilities or what programs they might have that can help you. Now, it is offensive to talk about bodily functions, but we do need to discuss it because when there is a sanitation system failure, um, there it can let out all kinds of intestinal microbes like E. coli into the environment. And this is what I keep thinking when I look at the poor people that are suffering so much in Gaza of, oh my gosh, I mean, think about it when you get the flu or, when you're sick to your stomach or when you have food poisoning, how sick you are. And you don't want to get that bacteria you don't want to spread it around and you don't want to have a disease. Now, in the intestine, there are harmless bacteria, and in fact, it's so much of it is useful for digestion. But when it gets bad is when it gets out of your intestine, out of your body, and it reaches your mouth via your hands or dirty water or contaminated food or however that fecal oral route goes. The stomach doesn't want these things in there. And the digestive system expels the bugs with a rush of fluid called dysentery when you're sick. And that's why when you're really sick or there's something in your body that your stomach doesn't want, we will get severe diarrhea or worse, you get food poisoning. And of course, if either are really severe, you should definitely contact your physician. But the critical thing is without sanitation, E. coli, salmonella, hepatitis A and B, cholera, typhoid, listeria, staph, and more can cause severe and even fatal illnesses that even a hand sanitizer will not kill. Now, of course, the most vulnerable are children, the elderly, and anyone who is pregnant. Now, dysentery can kill more people in a disaster situation or in a disaster sanitation situation than the actual disaster. And that's where I keep, again, looking at Gaza, I keep wondering, what are the facilities since nobody can get in there and nobody's really been documenting that? So there are 5 paths, they call them the 5 F's, to stopping germs from getting from your bottom to your mouth or to anybody's mouth, according to the World Health Organization. First, your fingers. You got to wash your hands with soap and water. And that means that if you have a disaster, you have to set up a hand washing area with hand washing equipment near the toilets. You need hand washing before you do any food prep, before you eat. And of course, if there's any medical situation, you never want to, touch anything on your body if your hands haven't been washed. Now, something that we forget to think about is flies. If you have what a lot of the response teams recommend is that everybody has a bucket that has a lid on it that you can put your fecal waste into, or you sit on it and do it into the bucket, right? I mean, that's before there were toilets, that's pretty much what people did. I know my mom grew up in a house that had no running water and no toilets. And her being the youngest child, it was her job every day to empty the pots. And so everybody would have like a bowl or a pot under their bed. And uh, she recalled it was like the worst job that you can imagine. And but that's what you had to do. So you have to have a lid. But getting back to the flies, one of the reasons that you want to cover your food with with saran wrap, or put it in a glass container, or cover it with foil. You want to always cover your food. And of course, if it is a disaster and you're using a bucket for your personal uses, you definitely need it covered, because flies carry germs from the poop to the food. So if you've ever watched flies, they will go to a dead animal, or they'll whatever's out there. The flies are there. But if they go and sit on your grapes or your apples or whatever you're eating, they can actually carry those dangerous microbes to your food, to your plates, to your utensils. So we have to be really, really careful about covering things up. Well, and also, this is the other reason it's important to have clean water around. Here in Northern California, because of earthquakes and because of fires, we're always told to have at least a 3-day supply of water for each person in the family, and they recommend 3 gallons per day. So what I have done is, you can, buy your water, but I have filled, when a Clorox bottle or bleach bottle is empty, I fill it with water and I store it in my garage, so that I have plenty of water that already has some bleach in it, just a little bit, because it's just in the bottle. So it's going to keep it clean. Now, of course, you can boil your water to drink, but it's important that you have clean water, because you need it not only for to wash your hands, but you also need it to wash your dishes. And you want to protect your food, obviously, from any other critters too, besides the flies. I mean, you don't want rats or raccoons or anything to get in it. Now, even small amounts of feces can be dangerous, because they are packed with bad germs. Now, the good news is that humans, you don't produce that much unless you're really sick and you have dysentery, and it's not usually so heavy to dispose of. Urine is not dangerous. In fact, it can even be a good fertilizer, but everybody makes a little bit more of that. So that's why portable toilets, whether it is a portable toilet that you buy and have around, or just a bucket with a lid, will be good to help you to prevent that coli. There are a lot of less expensive options, obviously, because a portable toilet would be expensive, and so would hand washing equipment. But you do want to make sure that you would have a place to do hand washing with soap. So that's why I always keep extra, either liquid soap or bars of soap, really important to have around. Now, a lot of people will say, well, like especially here in California with fires, well, if there is water in, the fire hydrants, what we have to know is that firefighter quality is not potable. It is not drinkable. It is a pressurized enough to fight fires, but those pipes are contaminated, and they're never or very rarely flushed and cleared. And so don't try to drink that water. Now, in order to flush a toilet, you need water pressure, and it takes quite a lot of water to make solids flow to the treatment plant. And without water, we have to do something else to get rid of the human waste. So that is the challenge that we have in any kind of disaster sanitation. So think again if about either getting some kind of toilet kit. Again, you can contact your community emergency response team, CERT, if you don't know where they are. it's usually can find it, cert.org, or just these days you can, Google anything. Or you could contact your fire department to find out about it, because sometimes their toilet kits might include like a latrine style tent, those bucket toilets, toilet paper, heavy duty plastic bags that are all for home use. And some of them will even offer to get you something that'll last a month or more. And that's another thing to put on your emergency list is don't forget the toilet paper. Do you remember during COVID when there was a run on toilet paper? I remember I remember a friend dropped off in my mailbox as a gift a roll of toilet paper all wrapped up with a pretty ribbon. And that, I mean, I always thought it was funny, but actually it was a very useful gift during the COVID-19. So again, think about it, whether it is a disaster situation, floods, fires, hurricanes, earthquake, whatever, tornadoes, could be anything. You have to be ready. Or just if your toilet backs up, you need to know who to call. So these are important numbers, etc., to have. Well, that's it for the first segment. You're listening to Cynthia Bryan. This is Star Style. Be the star you are. We'll be back with a business bite, and then we will talk again, and we're going to talk about emergency room or going to urgent care. Again, stay with me. Be back in a bit. Do you know how to increase innovation? Creativity thrives in a company when management encourages people to express ideas. To stimulate motivation, invite faculty members from local universities to speak from the frontiers of knowledge in their respective fields. Sponsor seminars or classes that will spark ideas in the minds of your team. Send employees to conferences and encourage them to attend industry association meetings. When people are tuned into what's happening beyond the scope of their company's policies, innovation soars and new opportunities and solutions to problems occur. By growing the minds of your people, you grow your company. Remember, you're the star of your own performance. Turn your passions into profits. I'm Cynthia Bryan with another business bite from Starstyle. For more information, visit cynthiabryan.com. That's Bryan with an I.com. Well, we are back. You're listening to Cynthia Bryan, and this is Star Style. Be the star you are. We're coming to the airwaves under the auspices of Be the Star You Are charity, a literacy charity to empower women, families, and youth. And in every episode, we strive our best to give you some useful information that you can bring into your life and make changes or just make things better. Well, in this segment, I want to talk about emergency rooms versus urgent care. This past summer, I suffered a really deep wound in my leg when a hammock post collapsed and a rusty bolt punctured my calf, and it went all the way to the bone. And although I realized I needed professional care, I didn't seek it because at the time I was extremely busy with some family obligations and I could not leave or go to the doctors or whatever. So I went to my medicine cabinet. I poured hydrogen peroxide on the wound. It stopped the bleeding. I applied Neosporin and I bandaged it. 4 days later, when family had all left and I was able to take a deep breath, I could tell I had a bad infection and I ended up in the emergency room. Now, when you need immediate medical attention for a sudden illness or injury, What do you do? Do you head to a hospital emergency room or to an urgent care clinic? And it really depends on what is going to be the best place for you to go. Now, I debated as well, but I realized that this wound was deep. My infection was already there. My leg was really swollen and red and really painful. And so I figured I probably needed to go to the hospital. I thought I would need stitches, but what I found out when I got there, and this is something really interesting, is that when you get a really deep cut, you only can surgically stitch it within the first like 18 hours. They say really 10 hours. And since it was 4 days, they couldn't stitch it. So they just had to clean the wound, put me on antibiotics. They took x-rays to make sure there was no metal or any other debris because it was rusty inside my leg. And that was it. It was time consuming, and I was at the hospital, the ER, for several hours. Um, but then the bill came, and the bill was really high. And I do have insurance, and it paid for some of it. And I'll tell you the rest later. But w this might have been a wound that, had I gone right away, that urgent care could have taken care of. So, when is the ER the best? Hospital emergency rooms are better staffed. They have board certified physicians in multiple specialties, and they are better equipped with access to operating rooms, CT and MRI scanners, and all kinds of other medical equipment that an urgent care center won't have. And that makes a nearby ER the place to go for anyone experiencing symptoms that could be potentially life-threatening conditions. And here are a few of the things that, if you're experiencing this, it's better if you go to the ER. If you're having shortness of breath, sudden severe breathing difficulties, because that could be caused from an asthma attack, an allergic reaction, pneumonia, pulmonary embolism, these are dangerous conditions, so you need to get to the ER. If you have pain or sensation of tightness in the chest or potentially radiating to the jaw or left arm, and you have dizziness, that could indicate a heart attack or other cardio event. You need to get to the ER. If you have sudden loss of speech or vision, difficulty speaking or understanding speech, tingling, or numbness on one side of the body, loss of the ability to move a limb, or a really severe headache, this could mean you're having a stroke and you need to get to the ER. If you're having severe abdominal pain, especially when accompanied by fever, nausea, and vomiting, these are symptomatic of appendicitis, intestinal blockage, sepsis, and other potentially serious conditions. The ER is the place to go. Now, if you have a major traumatic injury, including any that cause uncontrolled bleeding from a cut or a broken bone that is protruding through the skin, that's another ER. And the final real big one is a suspected poisoning or a drug overdose. Get to the ER. But urgent care centers are really a good place to go for some minor health problems, including sprains, strains, cuts that are smaller than a few inches that might need stitches and that aren't bleeding profusely. So that could have been me if I'd gone right away, except for the fact that they did need to um, x-ray it and they also took blood to see if I already had the infection. If you have a persistent sore throat or maybe an ear infection, if you have a skin infection where it's red and swollen, maybe pelvic pain, painful urination, or a urinary tract infection, urgent care can usually care for all these things, and it may be more conveniently located than hospitals. And urgent cares are less likely to have long wait times than crowded emergency rooms. Patients visiting urgent care clinics are typically seen within a few minutes, but only about 41% of emergency room visits results in patients being seen within 15 minutes, and that's according to the National Center for Health Statistics. So it is no wonder that the number of urgent care visits rose by 40% in the last year. Now, waits at both urgent care and emergency rooms are likely to get longer as the US population ages and because of the chronic shortage of doctors and nurses. And of course, if we get these health care insurance cuts because people may not have insurance. Now, while emergency rooms generally are open all day and night throughout the year, urgent care centers usually have limited hours. So you need to check first to see if your urgent care is open. Now, in urban areas, you might have a choice between a nearby hospital emergency room and an urgent care center. But in rural areas, you probably don't have an urgent care clinic. So the hospital ER might be your only option. Also, if there's any doubt about the severity of your illness or injury, it's better to call 911 and ask for an ambulance to drive that, to get you to the emergency room, as opposed to driving yourself or having someone else. Evidently, when you go by ambulance, they get you in right away. Now, health insurance plans generally cover emergency room care for true emergencies, but not all plans cover treatment for urgent care centers. And before an urgent medical problem arises, you probably should find out what your insurance covers. Now, federal law does dictate that an emergency room must provide treatment for a potential emergency, but your health insurer may later deny coverage for the visit if it determines that your situation was not an emergency. So you really do have to check on that. Now, if you lack health insurance and you have to pay out of pocket, you're going to spend a lot less at an urgent care clinic than at a hospital emergency room. Emergency room visits typically run somewhere like $1,500 to $3,000 or more. Then that's according to Better Care. But urgent care visits typically are $150 to $250. Now, with that said, I last year went to an urgent care because I had a tick that had burrowed into my neck. But when I got to the urgent care, they said that it was too close to my carotid artery and they wouldn't do anything. And they wanted me to go to the emergency room because at the emergency room they could do surgery. So for that, I ended up paying for urgent care and emergency room. Now, my emergency room visit cost for this leg injury. I was there about 4 hours. They gave me, as far as a painkiller, they just gave me a Tylenol, and then they gave me an antibiotic and they wrote me a prescription for an antibiotic. They did blood work and they did um, uh, a scan. What is it? An X-ray. Just take a guess. It was over $8,000. My insurance covered the majority. I still had $1,000 out of pocket and I had to pay $100 when I first went there. Now, had I sought care immediately, I might have been able to get the care I needed at urgent care. And for that, I would have been out $25, which would have been my copay. And then they would have billed my insurance the remaining 250. So I just share this information with you so that you have that knowledge and check now before you have an emergency to see what would be better for you. Well, that's our show for today, and I'm glad that you were here on Starstyle, Be the Star You Are with me, Cynthia Bryan. Every week there's going to be a new show. I like to be a lifestyle and personal growth coach because I do believe you can change your life and make your dreams come true. For more information about Starstyle Productions or to get any of my books and my 12th book, it's the fourth book in the Stella Bella Barnyard Adventure series is now out and it is available. You visit cynthiabryan.com. You can get autographed copies as well as extra gifts. And the money goes to charity. It goes to Be the Star You Are. And that website, you can also get the books from the website, bethestaryouare.org. That is where we are empowering our women, our families, and our youth. So, my aim is always to encourage, inspire, inform, amuse, and motivate. See beyond your physical being. Know you are already the star you dreamed of becoming. Cherish the past, dream of the future, but celebrate every moment of your life. And just remember, you are the greatest, you are the best, you are the coolest. And I want you to go get whatever it is you want out of life. So until next week, when we celebrate once again, remember that love always wins, kindness always prevails, and smiles will keep us happy. My name is Cynthia Bryan for Starstyle. I thank you and encourage you to continue to be kind, be inclusive, tell the truth, live with integrity, embrace cultures, love unconditionally, encourage others, be generous, read, lead, succeed, communicate, collaborate, innovate, and most importantly, be your unapologetically authentic self because everyone counts. Go out in the world and be the star you are and make it a fantastic week. Thanks for joining me, and do tune in to Express Yourself Teen Radio on Sundays at 3 p.m. on Voice America Media. Until next week, be great.